My name's Garrett Pletz and we own and operate P-Cross Ranch out here. We're located halfway between Rosetown and Biggar. We got about 4,000 acres of our land in a block here we own, and then we rent a lot more land for pasture and stuff.
Both Garrett and I, we had a real drive to want to expand and do more. Buying more cattle was kind of where it started, and then that led to buying more land.
I started out with just cow-calf, ran a couple hundred cows and just did that, and then I realized if I wanted to buy our newer stuff and stuff, I needed to expand, so we started feeding some calves, and that was okay, but there was so few numbers you really couldn't see the benefits, so then we started expanding. The yard I lived at before this, we built a 1,000 head feed yard and sold it because we kind of got landlocked. So we came here and we realized there's some opportunity. We got a large base of land, so it's cheap to haul silage to the yard. It's way more profitable for what we're doing here. And then we grew from a couple hundred cows, and then we actually sold them one time, paid off a bunch of land, and then rebought in, and we're not afraid to just roll as the punches. We keep our cow herds strictly because we need to utilize the marginal lands, right? I take a smaller profit on a shorter term deal than trying to hold out for 6 to 8 months or a year to try and make the money. So as soon as I can see we made some money, we're good, everything's cleaned up, we'll dump what we have if we need to. Like, we're all for a guaranteed profit, not a long shot, because we need to. We're young, we don't have a family farm backing us. Every dime is my dime, so there's no one else to share the risk with except for me.
When we first started, I was very involved in the day-to-day, whereas it feels like now every year I'm becoming less involved in the day-to-day. I feel like I'm doing as much for the operation as I ever did, or even more, but it's not on the farm. Outside of the operation, my position is I'm VP of Credit Services here at Biggar District Credit Union. The main part of my duties on the farm would be farm financial management, including bookkeeping and payroll. Those are kind of my two main areas. Every decision that's made on the farm, Garrett and I are discussing that together. It doesn't matter if it's selling cattle or even something as small as just purchasing feed. Knowing the impacts to both sides of both the production, but also to the financial side of it. That's what I kind of keep tabs on, is when we have income coming in and when we have money going out. And that's a big part to understand with all the decisions. Just the overall communication is super important.
We run 2 or 3 different types of rations, mostly an oat hull screenings-based ration. We normally silage 600 acres to 1,000 acres of corn, but the last 3 years of drought has destroyed our pile. As you can see, the silage bit is 1/16 of the normal size. Our corn silage, we normally put up about 8,000, 9,000 ton a year, but this last few years we've been struggling to get 1,500, 1,600. So we're eventually gonna switch over to maybe a molasses blend here in the near future, just because if it keeps dry. We've only had approximately 2 inches of rain last year, 2 the year before, so about 4.5 to 5 inches since June of 2020. So it's been a struggle. We started feeding in this area mostly because of the byproduct availability. Corn is the #1 reason why you can feed a bunch of byproducts, because it's a high energy source compared to barley silage and this and that. So that's really what got us going on the byproducts. We always had this massive pile of corn. We use brokers. They get us about 95% of our products now. We used to just source a little bits here and there, but now pretty much we rely heavily on them. We buy a lot of oat hulls as our main base, and they come out of food grade facilities, so they're very safe. We buy lentil screenings, and most of them come from food grade facilities as well. So it really helps us minimize our risk with our mycotoxins and our cheaper protein sources, such as our refuse, our screenings, our supplies like that. These are our oat hulls. Like, we feed it anywhere from 40 to 60% of our ration, just depending on the type of year we're having or how much straw we have available. It's very convenient. It doesn't make much bulkiness in the feed wagon. Our lentil and pea byproducts, they're full of hulls and splits, and they test very high in energy and protein. They're not as hard to get. The last few years, it's with the poor lentil crops and poor pea crops, the price sure came up. Like, they're charging anywhere from 40 to 80% of the barley price. So you kind of got to be careful now whether it pays to buy a product that's not processed, that's full of holes. Got to really make sure that it pays. If we see some windy days coming, we bring the processor in, we cover them with straw if we know it's going to be nasty. The wintertime doesn't seem to be as bad, but when we're feeding in the summer and the wind is blowing, it can be a disaster here. So if you're going to process it, you get to the point where you almost should buy barley and roll it and do it properly. So we don't see a whole lot of waste. Like, we look in the manure, we monitor their manure and stuff to see what they're passing through, and then we kind of adjust our ration from there. So over here, this is like a canola byproduct. It's light, so it's not real efficient to haul, but if it's close, the price is right, we take it. And then here we got our wheat and durum screenings that come in, and they're right full of splits and grain, and it looks like it's really a mess, but if you look inside, it's full of splits, and it's even full of lentils and pulse splits, and is way more potent than what people let on. So until you take the risk and do it, you don't really know what's actually in it.
So currently we have 3 full-time employees. Spring is really heavy for us, so generally we try and get seasonal help at that time. The struggle there is that we're competing against grain farmers for that help. It is difficult in that time period to find seasonal help, and that's actually originally why we started up on the International Rural Exchange Program. It's basically a program that we applied for. We bring in individuals from around the world. Generally, it's young adults, so between the ages of roughly 20 and 25. And they come over and they'll stay with us for usually between 3 and 6 months. They live with us, we feed them. Basically, as soon as they get off the plane, we take care of them. And so the benefit to the employee or to the trainee is that they know when they get here that they're going to be taken care of. Labor costs are fairly inexpensive because it's a set rate. The trainees that are coming over here, they're coming over here for the experience. We treat our employees like our family. We've always believed in that our employees are extremely important to our success.
I am Leslie Graham. I'm the manager here at P-Cross Ranch. Herd Tracks is really nice for us because we can use it online and offline. We have everybody on there, the cow-calf side and the feedlot side, which is awesome. All of our records are in one place. So you're able to look up and enter data in the field without worrying about having to have cell service. It'll still enter everything for you, and then when you come back and get cell service, it'll upload everything to everyone else's device. Because I am the manager of the program as well, I can see who entered what, so if there's anything that's questionable or any data that needs to be changed, I can talk to that person directly and be like, how did you treat this animal? How did you go about it? What was wrong? Was there anything different I should know? I'm able to decipher who entered what. In Herd Tracks here, I can enter an animal directly. It shows me where he is. He's in the paddock pen, his color, his arrival weight, his arrival date, and then I can actually go into history and see if he's ever been treated before. So it shows us when he was processed, when he was moved into each pen. We can track his location at all times. And then today, once we enter this treatment in, it'll show up in his records as well, so we can see his history completely. So this is our Herd Track system, the desktop version. All of our reproduction is in here. We can enter calving. We can see the whole list of cows that need to calve, so we can see everybody. The nice part too with the repro is that it tracks every cow. So any cow that's been here more than a year, we have her records from last year as well. So if she had bad udder, bad feet, if she was a poor mother, if it was a hard birth, anything like that, we have those records with us at all times. So when we're in the barn processing cattle, we actually take a laptop out. It's inside of a tote, and then we have a separate wireless keyboard to be able to work so the laptop doesn't get destroyed. And we are able to enter in any data that we need. So tag color, tag letter, the RFIDs, they scan directly into the system for us. We put the gender of the animal, the source, so where they came from, what day they arrived, their arrival weights, and then we can separate them actually into lot numbers through this as well. So if we have a group going into a certain pen and they're lot number 1, then we can enter that in right away, and that's attached to their records at all times. This is our lunchroom. We come in here daily. We actually make food in the house here. We all come and sit and have a coffee and take a lunch break together, which is really nice. No one has to pack a lunch or anything, which is sweet. During calving season, this house is our home. Garrett and I basically live here for at least a month because we're in and out of the field all night long, so it's a lot easier than us driving home all the time. We are now in the processing barn. Our processing barn features a bud box system. There's a big door here. They come in, we're able to swing this black gate. They come in, they run to the end, they turn around, this black gate then swings the opposite way, and they run up into the system. Another feature that we have in this backside that I should note is that we have a scale back here. It's a very large Rice Lake scale. We're able to weigh groups of cattle if we just need a catch weight out of a pen. But then we also have a scale underneath the squeeze where we can get individual cattle weights as well. We do custom feeding cattle, so being able to update the guys on a general weight of their pens, we can just bring 50 head up, weigh a couple groups, and then they have a general weight to where their pen's at too, without having to run everything through the hydraulic squeeze every time. With our alley, we have this to be able to stand up and work the cattle from above. It's all covered in so they can't see, and they're able to just focus on what's in front of them, see the light ahead of them. We have a butt bar at the back, so we get a group of, depending on their size, 4 or 5 head in here, and then the butt bar will be behind them so they can't back out on you all the time. We also have it adjustable, so we can get anything from a 400-pound calf to a 1,200-pound cow in here just by adjusting. Pull on these chains and it pulls that wall up and tightens up the whole alley or loosens off the alley. This is our hydraulic squeeze. This is the one that has weight bars underneath. It is able to get an individual cattle weight. This is what we use when we're inducting cattle. We put them in the head gate, we scan their CCIA tag, it goes directly into our herd track system, we give them a visual tag, we give them their vaccines, anything else we need to do, we brand some of the cattle, it depends on the owner and what they require, and we're able to get a weight, and then they go out the door just on the outside there, and they go back into the pen and back out where we can deal with them out there. So this is also our cold storage barn. This is where we keep all of our mineral products. So we actually sell New Rosedale mineral as well as some Celtec products. This is what we call our vet room. It houses all of our medications, anything we need for treating or any animal health things. We actually have physical copies of all of our treatment records as well, just so that if someone can't get into the system or there's something going on and you can't get onto the herd track system, we still have a physical copy that you can come in and look at. This is our heated shop. It's our equipment storage. It's also where all of our tools, anything like that gets stored. It's big enough we can fit both feed trucks, the payloader and the skid steer in here, so all the equipment that we use daily can be inside and we don't have to worry about it starting at -40.
Our water here at the feedlot is not very deep. We got basically unlimited water at 60 feet. We run all our energy efficient water bowls. There's no power going to any water bowls here, so we got enough head on each water bowl to make it work. So these are our thermosync bowls. We've got about half the feedlot in these, and they're basically, 3/4 of them are under the ground. They go down 8 feet, and then we just leave about a foot sticking up. Most majority of the water is all underground, and your float assembly is in the middle here, and it goes down, and there's a valve at the bottom, and the float runs in the top here. So the valve underground will never freeze. It's got all the ground heat, plus it's got enough water storage to keep from going. The benefits to these is, first of all, you're not running a 1,500 watt, heater day after day after day for 6 or 7 months or 10 months in Saskatchewan when we get winter. Like on the heated water bowls, when you have a mess up, you have a big mess up because it freezes your water lines, freezes everything. The biggest problem we have with these on the coldest, worst day ever is you come over here with your bar, chip out the holes, and sometimes the float will freeze, but we put mineral oil on top of the floats so that they don't, the condensation and the frost doesn't stick them. So the odd time in the when it's really windy or something, we would have to take the lids off and just, recheck the mineral oil on top of the float. It's very minimal maintenance. For these, we basically pour a cement pad, and then there's a 18-inch culvert coming up underneath the ground, all the water line inside, and then the float comes out, and this is it here. And it's there and accessible, and so you just got to monitor it so that the frost doesn't keep it up. In the future, we're going to eliminate this lid because of the ice buildup and run these pond balls in them. They're like little rubber balls, and it'll eliminate all the LJ in the summer from the sun, and it'll keep them open in the winter. Every single pen basically can open up and feed into a larger area. The bunks, we kind of did some trial and error on the heights of everything should be. It can feed mature cows, bulls, anything down to 400-pound calves. So we kind of took some trials to find out what size of bunk, what type of bunk. And we didn't use like the skirted bunks because the wind blows so bad here and the snow is so horrible. Usually you'd be shoveling them out every day here. So you'd need a full-time person or equipment to go do it. So they nose up naturally and there's a little bit of waste there on the edge, but once that lip's there, it stays for the year and we just don't touch it. Unless you have a rainstorm or a snowstorm or something, you gotta go break the crust, but it kind of just makes its own bunk, believe it or not. So there isn't much waste. Like you walk the bunks, they don't nose much over. It's relatively easy maintenance. We're stockpiling the manure, you know, half the feedlot at a time, but it also makes it time for it to compost and cuts our costs on hauling it out when it's composted and decomposed. We usually clean out half the feedlot every year. So we'll clean out that side of the road one year, stockpile it on this side. The next year we rotate, you know, clean out that half the feedlot. So it keeps our costs down from having to foot that massive bill every spring. And also the piles break down a little more. It's cheaper to haul them out if I can give the opportunity for the manure to break down. And then it's easy for us to distribute it out in the fields and disc it in, and then we can plant our corn into a, you know, a high nitrogen soil with all that fresh manure on it. So it kind of looks bad at the same time though, but they're breaking it down, the piles are warm, we don't seem to have any problems with them. You know, it's different when you own all the big equipment, like the big lots and stuff, doing it themselves, but for us, you know, you still have to write a $50,000 check to clean out just half the feedlot. So if you could disperse it over a year or two, or if fertilizer price is high, maybe I'll clean out the entire lot.
Every decision that we've ever made, we've been able to make ourselves. So we've never had to worry about asking someone's permission or to ask, you know, a dad or something, should we be doing this or are we able to do this? And so it doesn't matter if it's buying land, buying cattle, selling cattle, we've been able to make those decisions. And I think that's led to a lot of our success. And as much as sometimes it's frustrating because it would be nice to have, you know, some of that financial backing, or if we would have came from an established operation, would have made things easier. But also I don't think we would have expanded like we did because we were able to take on risks and kind of think outside the box and try new things without having to worry about someone else's opinion. I think that just both having that common vision and just that hardworking personality has allowed it to work.
I'm not afraid to fail, right? Depending on the markets, you got to gamble on something. If it looks right, you got to shoot because you can't win if you don't try, right? So think outside the box. You can't just sit there and do what's traditional or what grandpa did or this or that. There's way cheaper ways to feed. There's cheaper ways to do things. Sometimes it doesn't cost any more money. You just got to change your mindset.